my name is Megan and welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new, and I hope you guys are doing well and staying safe. Welcome to today's video, which is more of a casual video where I want to talk about the anticipated releases I have for the month of March and April. I used to do these videos twice a year, but there's so many releases coming out and being announced all the time that I thought twice a year just wasn't sufficient enough. So I'm going to try to do these bi-monthly now. Let me know if that's something you're interested in. Would you want them monthly, or would you prefer just the twice a year? So as I said, we are doing March and April today. I am not including all of the indie releases that are coming out in the next months because those move around so much, and most of my indie books I just kind of learn off of the internet once they are released. I don't really keep track aside from like my favorite authors. So all of this is like the traditionally published works. However, if you do have any books you think I'd be interested in that I have not put in my list, specifically indie romances or just any books in general that you are excited about for the next 2 months, leave me a comment down below. I really am curious to see what is coming out, and without further ado, let's hop on in, starting with March 2nd. March 2nd is the release of a sequel to the Fireborn series, which is Fireborn, Phoenix, and the Frost Palace. I have pre-ordered the special edition from Waterstones. This is a middle grade series, and it's kind of... how can I explain the vibes of this? I feel like it's kind of Viking-esque in the sense that our main character lives in this world that is kind of like grounds that are protected from the exterior, and she is learning to be kind of a hunter, is what they're called, to kind of protect the population. It's a middle grade, so our main character is pretty young, and on the first book things kind of happen. I don't want to spoil anything from this series, and so it's kind of a continuation of how the first book leaves off. I really love the writing style in this series so far. I think it is a strong middle grade series that was underhyped on the internet. I did see it like on Waterstones. That's kind of how I picked it up, but I haven't heard many people talk about it. It has very much winter vibes. So I'm glad that I picked up the first book in the winter. I did a terrible job at the synopsis, but I feel like I definitely cannot talk too much about it. But if you're interested in a new middle grade series that has a strong female protagonist, it has a lot of like the typical middle grade vibes where she kind of is a recluse at first, and then she makes friends, and her friends kind of help her throughout this quest. That's kind of the vibes, with like learning how to fight, a winter setting, a closed out town, those sort of vibes. That is that series. Now on March 7th we have Off the Map by Trish Dollar. This is the third or fourth book by this author. She is technically a romance author, but I know a lot of people say it's kind of like very emotional as well. Some people say it's more like general fiction with some romance in it. I do have one of her books. I have not read any. However, this one sounded very interesting to me, and it's kind of on my radar. Will I pick it up or not? Who knows, but it's on my radar. This one follows a main character who has been living in her Jeep. She kind of goes on adventures. She stays in a town only long enough to kind of make money to go on her next adventure, and she ends up going to her friend's wedding in Ireland, in Dublin, sorry. And she gets picked up by this man at the airport, and while they are driving themselves to the wedding, shenanigans happen. I don't know if they're stranded or whatnot, but then they kind of form this friendship and connection, and this is kind of hard for a main character because she has kind of sworn off love. She doesn't want a romantic relationship, so I think it's going to be kind of a self journey, like a self-growth journey, and realizing that you can be in love regardless of your past trauma. So I think there will be some heavier themes in here, but it sounds phenomenal, and I've heard great things from this author's writing and just stories in general, but they are a lot more emotional than the covers always let on, is what I'm understanding. On March 14th, there is The Love Wager by Lynn Painter. She is the author of that freaking book, the YA book with like the movie theme, and everybody's been raving about it on TikTok and Book Talk to the point now I want to read it. And this is the story of, I think this one is an adult romance. just side note, and this is the story of two people who bet on who can fall in love first. It's like a love wager, but turns out they should be waging on each other because I think they have romantic feelings and they are going to end up together within that journey of each of them trying to find love individually. They will kind of lead each other to, you know, be a couple. We love that. I've heard great things about Lynn Painter. This one sounds really intriguing to me because I like the premise and I like the influence of the bet and how that can get kind of the plot running. So very interested in that one. Another book we have on March 14th is Love Takes Flight, and this is a combination of novellas by Denise Williams that are all airport related, like the people meet in the airport or have some sort of connection related to airports and taking flights and catching feelings, and that's kind of like what combines all of the novellas together, similarly to Ali Hazelwood's novella bind-up that came out recently. Is the same kind of idea. I read the first novella that Denise Williams came out with in this concept and I really enjoyed it. Therefore I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna wait for the bind-up to come out and kind of purchase it and be able to annotate and tab, because there was a lot of sweet scenes. I really like the author's writing and it's just right up my alley in terms of romance, and the combination between romance and something that's, you know, not too light and fluffy but not so emotional that all I'm doing is sobbing. I think she hits the perfect spot and I'm very excited to read the other novellas included in this. So if you have not read them, you can read them individually on Kindle, or do like me and just wait for the bind-up to release because it'll be soon. So those were all the releases I have in March. As I said, March is never the biggest release month for me, which is unfortunate because it's my birthday, so it would be like the prime time to ask for books. Unfortunately, it's usually in April, so let's talk about the April books I'm interested in. The first one on my radar is one I haven't seen anyone talk about, and it is The Plus One, which is a fake dating turns into something between childhood enemies. So many tropes. It sounds wonderful. I absolutely adore the cover. I've never heard of this author before. I do believe it's a debut novel, but then again, I'm not sure if it's just me that hasn't heard of the author or if it's actually the author's first book, but I think it sounds fabulous. Anything that's fake dating is already up my alley, and then you have this kind of like childhood enemies that grow up, and then you kind of get to figure out why they were enemies in the first place, which is always interesting in romance, because were they really ever enemies, or is it just this little bit of drama that exploded and then they're enemies? You know what I mean? Very intrigued to find out more. It's on my radar for sure. On April 6th, we have Coach by Daphne Perry, and the tagline for this is football star, single dad, and once a long time ago, mine. Yes, please, thank you. I've heard great things from Daphne Perry, and the fact that this is a single dad romance, again, one of my all-time favorite tropes. It gets me every time. I am mushy gushy for a man with a little child. It just does something to me. Like, that's where I'm at in my personal journey. So this one I do think I'm going to pre-order. Right now it's only available for pre-order on Kindle, but definitely one I'm considering highly. On April 25th, we have Bear With Me Now, which follows a man who had a panic attack and ends up in the hospital, and he is essentially dragged by his sister to this wildness camp slash retreat, and I guess it's to help his anxiety. And while he's there, he has this encounter with a bear, and the wilderness handyman woman comes in and kind of saves him from the bear. And it's really cool to see kind of inverse roles where the female is kind of more like the handy woman and she's strong and she can face a bear, and then we have the man who's a little bit more fragile, who's dealing with mental health, and how they're going to come together. The cover and the title of this is just so funny to me. I really love it. It sounds like a fun rom-com that tackles more important topics. Obviously mental health, I always like seeing that in books because it's the reality for so many people. So interested about that one. Again, I had not heard many people talk about it. And also on April 25th, we have In the Lives of Puppets by TJ Klune. I pre-ordered the special edition from Waterstones. I really enjoyed the House on the Cerulean Sea. I do know now that it is problematic because of what it's based off, so I'm kind of wary going into this one, but at the same time I'm looking for the fuzzy feels. And this one is a group of robots and their human companions. I'm not sure how that's gonna go. It is very different because it's kind of like fantasy, but it's also kind of very emotional and kind of has some contemporary elements to it. That's usually TJ Klune's books, but it just sounds so whimsical and so magical, and that's the vibe I'm looking for with that book, so hopefully it delivers. But that one I'm getting for sure. And then the last 3 books I want to talk about come out on April 27th. The first one being the first Shadow Dragon, which is the sequel to the Firefox, The Last Firefox. This is a middle grade series, and it is very short, whimsical books. I'm not going to talk too much about it because I feel like it's very spoilery, but this is essentially an adventure book. It's kind of like going on a quest. The first book is lovely. I love the fox and the cover on that one, and the second book is also gorgeous. Again, I pre-ordered the special edition from Waterstones. I'm in my middle grade era right now. Like, I'm living, laughing, loving for middle grade, so I'm very excited for that sequel. Similarly, and like my most anticipated book on all of this list, is Skandar and the Phantom Rider. This is the second book to the Skandar series, which is going to be 5 different books. It has already been picked up for a movie deal, if I'm not mistaken. A lot of people compare it to Harry Potter. I do think there are some elements that are similar, but I also feel like it's kind of like if you put Percy Jackson and Avatar: The Last Airbender together, you would get Skandar and the Unicorn Thief, which was the first book, and this is the sequel, so it's like their second year. Essentially, Skandar and the Unicorn Thief is the story of this boy who lives in a world where unicorns are a thing, but they're not like bright colored unicorns that you know, children think about. They're actually mean unicorns, and some of them are wild, and in order to kind of keep the safety in their town, some people become unicorn riders, and Skandar is kind of like at the beginning of learning how to be a unicorn rider and how to bond with a unicorn and the powers. There are technically 4 elements, but there are really 5 elements which you could be attached to, kind of like Avatar and The Last Airbender. And so in the first book, Skandar learns about his element and meets friends, and like every house is like an element because they go to this training camp and they're set in different houses, and it's just the mixture of everything I loved in middle grade. The audiobook, fantastic. I devoured that book. The books are gorgeous. I just think that it's exactly what I love. It's an adventure book. It has the magical world. It has the friendships. It's just very fun, fast-paced. I really, really love the first book. I get it's not everyone's cup of tea. Some people it's like copy-paste of all the other middle grades, but that's what I look for in middle grade books. So I cannot tell you how excited I am for that one. I would sell my soul for an advanced reader copy of that second book. I'm not even joking. I am so incredibly excited. Also, I'm thinking of doing a full review of Skandar and the Unicorn Thief, so let me know if that is something you are interested in. And the last book I have to talk about is Happy Place by Emily Henry. Again, pre-ordered the Waterstones exclusive edition with beautiful sprayed edges for that one. This one is a fake dating, previously were dating kind of book, where essentially it's 2 people that were in a relationship but broke up, and then they're supposed to go on their annual like French trip to kind of a lake or something, and they haven't told their friends that they're not together, so they're pretending to be together for that trip. And first of all, why would you do that? But also give me the tea. And I guess they end up falling back in love during that trip. So it's a second chance romance for a couple that was previously together and are fake dating so that their friends don't know that they're not together anymore. Beach read for me is like top tier, changed my life, was there for me in my darkest emotions, and I will forever be thankful to Emily Henry and her writing style. Is Emily Henry really a romance author? That one's debatable, but we're not going to get into that today. But I'm very, very excited for this one. Although a lot of people say that Beach Read and her last release, Book Lovers, are similar together, and then People We Meet on Vacation and Happy Place are kind of together from the early reviews. So do of that what you will. But that's kind of like the vibe of Happy Place is more similar to People We Meet on Vacation from what I've heard. Nonetheless, extremely excited. So those were all the books on my list. It is a very short list, but you know, it's enough, especially since I'm not really reading at the moment. But that's a talk for another time. So again, let me know in the comments down below if you have any releases you think I should keep on my radar or books you're excited for the upcoming months. And I'll see you very soon with another video. Bye guys, happy reading.